Plus, we'll be joined by a man who met the Queen on several occasions, comedy legend, actor and broadcaster Christopher Biggins. We'll also speak to a royal illustrator whose drawings have gone viral, and Britain's human lie detector, Darren Stanton, who'll be reading the body language of Charles, Camilla, William, Kate, Harry and Meghan. He's been watching their behaviour very closely over the last few days and will tell us what exactly is going on in their heads. This guy is extraordinary, he's perceptive, and you won't want to miss his observations after 10. In my big opinion monologue in just 2 minutes' time, why Charles must stay out of politics. It's my view that if he doesn't, it won't end well for the monarchy. I'm not going to be pulling my punches. That's my big opinion monologue in 2 minutes' time. Also in my take at 10, my thoughts on Queen Camilla, who I think will do a brilliant job. Plus my all-star panel reacting to the big stories of the day, and tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30. So get the kettle on and I'll see you after the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good evening, it's 1 minute past 9. I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. The late Queen Elizabeth II's 8 grandchildren stood guard around her coffin in Westminster Hall this evening. William stood near his cousins Zara Tindall and Peter Phillips, while Harry was with the Duke of York's daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. The Earl of Wessex's children stood near the middle. Members of the public filed slowly past them, also paying their respects. The Prince of Wales then led his brother and cousins out of Westminster Hall as the vigil ended. Earlier, the King and Prince of Wales made a surprise visit, greeting people in the queue to see the Queen lying in state. Hundreds of people cheered as King Charles arrived to speak to those who've been waiting in line in South London. They offered their condolences to the King and Prince William, who thanked the crowd for standing in the cold throughout the night to pay their respects to the late monarch. The Prince of Wales could be heard asking them how long they'd been waiting for. The government website currently suggests the wait time is 13.5 hours. The Met Police says it's honoured to have hosted the King and Prince William after they visited the Special Operations Room. King Charles was greeted by the new Commissioner, Sir Mark Dolan, the Home Secretary and the London Mayor. Both he and Prince William thanked emergency service staff for their work during the period of mourning. The security operation for the state funeral on Monday is set to be the biggest in the Met Police Force's history. World leaders have started arriving ahead of the state funeral, with around 500 dignitaries expected to attend. A number have visited Westminster Hall to pay their respects, including the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. New Zealand's Jacinda Ardern also attended the Queen's lying in state, as well as the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden are now on their way to the UK. Rehearsals for the funeral were held in Windsor in the early hours of this morning, with the procession moving down the Long Walk towards the castle gates. In other news now, and one of 2 police officers stabbed in central London yesterday has been discharged from hospital. The incident happened in Leicester Square at around 6 o'clock in the morning. Another officer, who was stabbed 3 times in the neck and once in the chest, is in hospital, but his injuries aren't said to be life-threatening. A 24-year-old man was arrested and remains in custody. Police are renewing their appeal for witnesses. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. In the run-up to the Queen's funeral on Monday, I'll be joined live in the studio by one of the most respected and experienced royal broadcasters in the country, Michael Cole. Michael was also the chief spokesman for Mohammed Al Fayed, the father of Dodi Fayed, killed, of course, in that tragic car crash with Diana. Plus, we'll be joined by a man who met the Queen on several occasions, comedy legend and good friend of this show, actor and broadcaster Christopher Biggins. We'll also speak to a royal illustrator whose drawings have gone viral since the Queen's passing, including some stunning images of the Queen and her corgis. We'll also be joined by a very clever man, Britain's human lie detector, Darren Stanton. He'll be reading the body language of Charles, Camilla, William, Kate, Harry and Meghan. He's been watching their behaviour and their body language very closely over the last few days and will tell us exactly what's going on in their heads. The guy is perceptive. You won't want to miss Darren Stanton's observations after 10. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show, Mark at gbnews.uk, with me all evening, reacting to the big stories of the day and tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30. It's my all-star panel of Olympic legend Chris Akabusi, best-selling author and lawyer Rebecca Jane, and journalist, writer and broadcaster Lizzie Zeta. And in my Take at 10 monologue just after 10, I'll be talking about Queen Camilla. I think she'll be amazing. But let's start with the King. Let's talk about the future. The passing of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II is inevitably a time of deep sorrow, as reflected in the queues of thousands of people waiting in line to pay their respects. Apart from ITV presenters, they don't queue. So whilst we mourn the Queen's passing, now must be a time of great optimism too, because our brand new King, Charles III, may be in his 8th decade, technically, but you couldn't hope to find a brighter, more energetic and committed public figure. He's the perfect man for the job, with more recognition on the world stage than almost anyone. Plus, he's been waiting for this moment for decades. He's had time to watch and learn from his incredible mother and his incredible father, I should add. He's seen the highs and lows of being a monarch, the good, the bad and the ugly. He'll make mistakes, of course he will. He's only human. But I don't think he'll make many. He's also had decades to think about what he'll do with the monarchy. He must, of course, follow the Queen's incredible example by representing the country and leading it whilst staying out of politics. And on that, I will hold him to account. But he's got to make the gig his own too. This mustn't be a disappointing sequel to Elizabeth's reign, rather the start of an exciting new franchise. Whilst the constitutional monarch wields no political power, which is why it's so successful, and why the King or Queen is really the only person that can truly unite the country, it's not a role without huge influence. The monarch can make or break Britain. The Queen's great legacy, and where do you start, is the country that she's left behind. A politically stable economic powerhouse, a global beacon of diversity, creativity and enterprise. As our constitutional figurehead, Britain's recovery from the Second World War and now its preeminent position as a G7 superpower with a world-class military is something for which the Queen deserves credit. Britain's largely positive post-war journey all happened on her watch. The Queen made Britain great again. So Charles has a simple task: to keep Britain great. And how does he do that? Well, he has two main challenges. Firstly, to preserve the union of the United Kingdom and to silence the siren voices of separatism, the likes of the SNP, whose uber nationalism is not only bad news for Britain, but most importantly, bad news for the people of Scotland. He must take a union-centric approach to his monarchy in everything he does. Every action, for every waking hour, must be about Wales, about Scotland, about Northern Ireland, and about England. And his other great challenge is the preservation of the Commonwealth, a beloved family of nations, a celebrated bridge to our economic, strategic, geographical, and diplomatic past. If he looks after the Commonwealth and listens to those voices around the world who seek more national identity whilst wanting to stay in the family, then the Commonwealth will not unravel, as many predict, but rather it will strengthen. With God's will, Charles has got 2 or 3 decades in which to make that happen. And in that, I wish him well. But let me reiterate, Charles must stay out of politics and resist penning those spider letters to government ministers, something of a late-night habit of his. And he must stay away from the net zero green agenda too, because that is an exclusively political matter. If he pushes debatable net zero, mark my words, it will lead to zero monarchy. The public will not tolerate a politicised king. King no way will they put up with it. We just need a monarch who can speak up for Britain, represent our traditions and values, and serve our interests at home and abroad. We know Charles will be a monarch who loves his country, but he needs to lead a country that loves itself too, by being a king for every Brit, of every age, of every creed, race, and social class. He must be a king for all. As we navigate life after the pandemic and this economic shock, and as we come to terms with a 21st century in which China is now fast emerging as the world's greatest superpower, with Vladimir Putin holding the West to ransom over energy supplies and conducting a cruel war in Ukraine, we're going to need a steady hand at the tiller, a calm head under pressure, and a king who can support our exciting new Prime Minister Liz Truss and remind the nation at every turn that whilst we've lost a queen, we've gained a king. Charles has his critics, the campaigning prince has divided opinion, and of course his love life has been a bit checkered too. Plus, he's got a short fuse. He's a bit pampered and clearly does not get on well with fountain pens. So I think expectations are pitched just right for Charles. Everyone knows the Queen is the hardest act to follow, and she simply can't be replaced. So whilst expectations for our new king may be at the lower end, I think that's a good thing, and I believe he will exceed them. I think he'll be good, and if he stays out of politics, I will back him all the way. As the saying goes, the Queen is dead, long live the King. And may he prosper, for his victory, his glory is ours too. Will Charles be a great king? Will he preserve the Union? Will he preserve the Commonwealth? What's your view? mark@gbnews.uk. I'll get to your emails very shortly. Reacting to my big opinion and all of the big stories of the day are my brilliant panel of Olympic legend Chris Akabusi, best-selling author and lawyer Rebecca Jane, and journalist, writer and broadcaster Lizzie Zeta. Rebecca Jane, let me start with you. Are you looking forward to the reign of King Charles III?
I am, yes.
Why?
Because I think actually that we have never been a more royal nation than what we are now, actually. Potentially, aside from, back in the 80s, I think that we're being reminded how much we love our royal family. I think we're being reminded of our traditions, our absolutely over-the-top British heritage. It's absolutely fabulous. So, yes, I am looking forward to King Charles. I think that there is a rogue element to him, and he could start delving into politics. Again, I think I'll agree with you. Bad mistake, that would be terrible. Because you've got to be loved in this job. Because, there's one reason why we all loved the Queen, it's because, she was loved by all, because she didn't express opinions in politics.
Yes, Chris, are you looking forward to the reign of King Charles III?
Well, the reign of King Charles III has already started, and that's one of the anomalies. Well, we're still in mourning for his mum, and he definitely is, Queen Elizabeth II. His reign has already started, and he made a very good job of his very first presentation as king. And you saw somebody who was sentient, articulate. He brought his family together, and he's got his finger on the pulse of where the nation is. So I've got no doubt that King Charles III has not wasted the last 70 years. And the last 40 years has been preparing for this moment, and he's been patient. And now his time has come. I'm sure he'll step up to the plate and make us all proud.
Lizzie, Zita, is there a danger that Charles has waited too long for this appointment? Has he gone off the boil?
No, I don't think so. He's had a massively long gestation period, and I think he's had time to watch his mum and also his father in the role, in particular his mother, and to learn and to prepare when he takes on a very heavy mantle in following his mother, because she's a tough act to follow. And I think he's great. I think that he was amazing when he spoke so early, so many years ago, about green issues, about global warming, about the need to be organic. I'm very much pro him, and I think that he will do a great job.
Lizzie, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. We need to fix your microphone. What do you think are the pitfalls that lie ahead in the short term for King Charles, RJ?
Oh, crikey me. I think it's that politics issue, because I think that he hasn't kept out of that stuff historically over his life period. You know, does he recognise that now is the time to be quiet and just do what the people want you to do and to be this token figure of our nation? I hope so. But, you know, he is a human after all. And then also, I do think, you know, and not to start mentioning this as early on as I'm going to, but, you know, the Harry and Meghan situation, I still think that's going to rear a problem for him.
Well, I think you're right. Let me now put that point to my studio guest this evening, one of the most respected and experienced royal broadcasters in the country. Michael Cole is with us. Michael, welcome to GB News. Let me just make sure that we've got our ducks in a row here, because I want to see Michael's handsome face. There we are. We've got you queued up. And Michael, listen, you've been broadcasting for many years. You know about live telly. Great to have you in the studio. Do you think there's a risk that the prince, who is now the king, that you know well, has waited too long for this role? Might there be a degree of rancour or bitterness now that he's finally king?
Cometh the hour, Mark, cometh the man. We have King Charles III. He has waited all his life since the age of 3. He knew his fate. He would be king one day if he survived his mother. I think we must say that, let's give him credit, it's very, very hard to be grieving in public with the eyes of the world on you. And I give him credit. He's made an extremely good start. That first televised address to the people, when he went out of his way to express love for his son, Harry, and his wife, Meghan, was a very good thing. And that prompted Prince William to make the call he had to make to his brother and say, come on, Harry, let's go down to the gates, let's meet the people. Also, the Accession Council, I think he cut an extremely dignified figure. And I think it's a very, very good sign, because it's not a question of whether he will be a good king. He has to be a good king for the continuation and prosperity of the House of Windsor and for our constitutional monarchy. We all are very fortunate to live in this country where a constitutional monarch is a very important bulwark, a defence against extremism, against dictatorships, and has been over the years. And I think he's going to be a good king. You mentioned, and quite rightly, and I think your summary worldview was excellent, you mentioned his previous life, his role as Prince of Wales, when he was writing Black Spider letters and he was lobbying ministers and he was pushing his causes, some right, some wrong. He was asked in an interview quite recently whether he would do that when he was king. And he said, no, of course not. It was a different role. He said, I'm not that stupid. You know, he said that so it was put to him. He has said quite clearly that he's pledged himself to continue the work of his mother. and what fantastic work she did over 8 decades, actually, because she dedicated her life when she was 21 to this country, her life, whether it be long or short. And we've all benefited from that. And I think he will do well. He's had a good apprenticeship. And the interesting thing is, obviously, his reign is not going to be as long as his mother's. It cannot be. But a short reign can be very, very successful. Edward VII only reigned for 9 years. Queen Victoria died in 1901. He reigned until May 1910. But he gave his name to an era. It was the Edwardian era. Yeah. It was a golden age. He had a Derby winner. He was terribly popular. People were going on the Thames, smoking cigars, enjoying themselves. He went to France. He saw a beautiful French actress. He kissed her hand and said, "Madam, you're as beautiful as France itself." And that cemented the entente cordiale. Yeah. That led, of course, to an alliance which meant that we were in the First World War alongside the French poilus in the trenches. And the Tommies there, you know, they said none of this would have happened if old King Teddy had been around, because he was the uncle of Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, and they felt that the king could have interceded to stop that. And it's very important because you said, has he waited too long? Edward VII said that he waited 20 years too long before he took over from Queen Victoria, and she wouldn't allow him to see anything. The Queen has inculcated him into the workings of the monarchy, not to the point of doing the red boxes and seeing all the secrets and so on, but we saw it. He and Prince William stood in for the Queen at the opening of Parliament. He's been ready for this his whole life, as indeed has the operation which we are seeing, London Bridge. I mean, it's all very well having a plan, but actually you have to put it into perfection. And my goodness, hasn't it been brilliant so far?
Hasn't it been brilliant? And I agree with you that he's been pitch perfect so far. I can even forgive the Pengate drama, because I've never got on with a fountain pen myself. I think it showed he's human. He's also the king. You're allowed to be a little bit of a diva as the king of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I love fountain pens, let me just say. But he was always a little bit irascible, a little bit tetchy.
Yeah, a little bit cranky.
Yeah, he gets that from his grandfather. King George VI had a foul temper, but that was partly because of his speech impediment and expressing himself. But he has got that, and he's very unwise to let it show, even if it's there. But you're going to be talking about the Queen Consort Camilla soon. She has made him more grounded. She's made him happier. He's more content. He can control things. Now, today, on the Albert Embankment, where they went down there, meeting the crowds is not King Charles's forte, but he did it very well. There were some lovely choruses of God Save the King, but there were also a very rarely heard ditty, God Save the Prince of Wales, because when Prince William was there, he's a total natural. He's Diana's son. It comes naturally to him. And don't they love him? I mean, people were shouting out, "I love you, I love you."
What will they do? And I've said that in recent days, that William and Kate are box office. Is there a danger that King Charles will be under the shadow of his late great mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and in the current shadow of his son and daughter-in-law, the Prince and Princess of Wales? Could he fall between both stools?
I don't think so. I think he will establish himself. I think this will be quite an interesting reign. The people are already responding to him, and the comments that I've heard, random comments, have always been very, very positive. He certainly has huge goodwill.
Michael, you don't think he'll be looking at the papers and thinking, well, why are there more pictures of William and Kate? Why are they still talking about my mother? Will he not be sort of, thinking about it in that rather sort of territorial way?
No.
Is that not his nature?
No. He took him a few years to mature, but I think he has matured.
Was he not threatened by Diana's popularity?
Terribly. I remember filming in Vienna, in the Haymarket, and where my camera was the side of the road that he was, and Diana was over there, and they were all shouting, "Diana, Diana, Diana." He said, "You have to put up with me. She's over there," you know. I mean, he was. Had it been me, and they'd been cheering my wife, I would have been so pleased. I would have reflected glory on me for being so clever to choose my wife. But he did he didn't get on with that too well. But that was a long time ago. We're talking about 40 years ago. I think he's got over that. The country's got over that. It's 25 years since the tragic death of much missed Diana.
Yeah.
We have to move on. Everybody's shown that. And I think even in many ordinary families, a funeral, a family funeral, is a catalyst for mending fences, for coming together. And certainly he's taking the lead by expressing his love publicly for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle,
yes,
and the life they've. That was a very good thing to do, and that's what the people wanted.
It was bold, wasn't it? It was a bold gesture.
It was, because there's real hurt and there's real resentment. Because if you throw out a general accusation of racism, it's easy to make. It's impossible to refute. How do you prove a negative?
And it's 100% damaging.
Of course it is, because even if you're trying to refute it, you never will, because somebody will say, there must be something in it. It was very unfair, very unwise, and I think I would hope, as we've turned on to this subject, I would hope that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, particularly her, will look at this, look at the splendour, look at what the world's attention. This country is the centre of the world. Everybody is coming here. We are experiencing, Mark, these are days of history. They are days of history. And nobody could do it better. But that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is nobody's being bussed down there. Nobody's being told to go down there. Nobody's been ordered to wave a flag or shout out something. They're going to pay respect, or if you want a bigger word, because of their affection, or if you want an even bigger word, love. That's why they're going. And that, you can't buy that. You cannot buy that. Let me just tell you one thing about Her Majesty the Queen. I mean, I saw her around the world, from the frozen north of Saskatchewan to New Zealand to Kathmandu to the Bahamas, wherever it was.
By the way, you must have picked up a few air miles over the year. Drinks are on you.
Well, I never went on the Royal Plane, but we went. It was hard work, I promise you. But let me just tell you one thing, because the Queen was born in 1926. In 1926, the year of the Great General Strike, Ireland, the Irish Free State, was only 4 years old. And when the Queen went on her state visit to Ireland in 2011, I thought that was absolutely fantastic. China was great, but this was fantastic. The reason being is that nobody other than the Queen could have gone, because her grandfather, George V, signed the instrument that created the Irish Free State, that became ERA, that in 1949 became the Irish Republic. If a politician had gone, it wouldn't have meant anything. But she went to Croke Park, the site of the original Bloody Sunday. She went to the memorial in the gardens, to the martyrs, the people who died fighting for Irish independence. She bowed her head. She made a few words, speaking in Erse at the beginning of the banquet. The Irish people, who are no mugs, they understand when somebody is phony and when somebody is real and genuine. They loved it, and they turned her. And to go to the city of Cork, real hard Republican centre, nowhere more so than Cork, and charm people in the English market.
Probably dressed in green.
She was dressed in green. She was. The royal family all... I mean, I remember Diana arriving in Japan with a lovely sort of rising sun, white dress with lovely rising suns, and in Saudi Arabia all in green, because that's a lovely colour. That was nice. And nobody but the Queen could have done that. You know, it was a huge risk, because in 1956, in 1966, before the Troubles really began, the Queen was visiting Northern Ireland, and somebody on a building site dropped a huge big building block on the bonnet of her Rolls-Royce, and it made a dent there. You know, I mean, there is risk involved. And I'll tell you another thing. Let me just, let's widen it a bit, because the Commonwealth, the value of having a constitutional monarchy. Now, I was in Washington at the end of Watergate. Now, Watergate paralysed American government for 18 months. The head of state, the commander-in-chief of the forces, the font of all honours, Richard Nixon, was found to be just another crooked politician up to dirty tricks. And it took 18 months to resolve that. The country was paralysed politically.
No head of state.
No. The Canadians looked down and said, thank goodness we have a head of state who is above politics. Canada is the second biggest country in the world. What holds it together, or held it together? The Canadian National Railways and the Queen. Although she never went to school, speaks perfect French, President Macron has testified to that. She even went to Quebec when the separatist movement was at its height, and there were brickbats and there was the threat of violence. She faced it all down. She did that, and that was what was amazing about her. And she went to China, and I remember, I've never been, it's not for me to be proud of the monarch, but I was proud of her on many occasions. There she was standing in the Great Hall of the People in her shimmering white dress with the garter sash, with her jewels and with her tiara, making a speech to these, interesting, this comes back to it, to the hierarchy of the communist China, the people that Prince Charles unhelpfully and undiplomatically had described as ghastly old waxworks. So she had to go there, and she made a great speech of friendship, and it was met with inscrutability. And then the poor woman had to sit down and eat sea slug for dinner. You know, I mean, what she did.
Walking the walk. And this was very much the theme of my big opinion monologue, which is that our constitutional monarch wields no political power, which is why the king or queen is the one figure that can unite the nation always. But they have colossal, soft diplomatic power and almost unlimited influence.
Absolutely.
So do you think Charles can make history? Will we have stories like this about King Charles in years to come?
Well, the great thing is the royal prerogative is quite clear. The monarch has the right to be consulted, in other words, to be informed, the right to encourage and the right to warn. And when the monarch has the audience every week, the Prime Minister, to use the correct terminology, has an audience of the Queen or audience of the King. When that happens, that is completely sealed. There's no other people there. Nobody takes notes. There's never been a leak. And I always used to think it was rather like, you know, the schoolboys bringing their homework to see the headmistress.
Yeah.
And it was said of the Queen, you know, she listened to what they had to say and she asked questions and so on. And one of the most riveting things that could ever happen to a British Prime Minister was if the Queen raised an eyebrow and said, "Do you think this is entirely wise, Prime Minister?" And
do you think that became her catchphrase recently?
Well, I don't know. I think
last couple of years.
I think they would certainly think of it. And the prime ministers who have spoken about it have all said that they found it a very, very useful sounding board because they knew that they could speak frankly. They could say things to her that they couldn't say even to their closest colleagues, and it would never leak. Now, Prince Charles is in that position. He has his views. They're not going to change. Of course they're not. But
has the Queen had hers?
Yes, the Queen had hers. Of course she did. She had the views of a country gentlewoman, and she expressed them, I'm sure she did. But we don't know. That's the great thing about it. She was an enigma, and that was her power, because we didn't know. All these people who are going through in a way, they're projecting their own lives onto her life in a funny way. You know?
And do you think that Charles will harness that power? Do you think that he will be disciplined enough to vent directly to the Prime Minister, which is in his gift, as you say, to warn and advise? But do you think he can keep it zipped in terms of the general public?
Well, he's got to.
Yeah.
I mean,
it wouldn't age well. It wouldn't play out well if he doesn't.
No, it wouldn't play out well. And he has been asked about it, and he said, you know, I'm not that stupid. And of course, the Queen never went to school. She had tutors, and she had her father, and her father tutored her in the nuances of the British unwritten constitution. And it's very, very clear. There's tremendous value in having a constitutional monarchy, a tremendous value, and we should never, ever forget that.
Lots more to come from Michael Cole, one of the most respected royal journalists in the country. He's been there, he's got the T-shirt, he knows the royal family intimately well, and we've got so much more to ask him in the course of the programme, of course, in the run-up to the very sad occasion of Monday's funeral. Joining me now is a man who met and performed for the Queen, comedy legend, actor and TV royalty himself, Christopher Biggins. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. We know you're very busy tonight. We haven't spoken since the sad news. Where were you when the sad news broke of the passing of Queen Elizabeth?
Well, I was on a train going to Edinburgh, and I was on the train, and we knew something was happening. I kept getting phone calls from people, and we had a major sitting next to us on the train to Edinburgh, and he was in constant contact, and he suddenly turned and he said, "Her Majesty is dead." And so that's how we found out. And I was going up to do a charity for the Prince's Trust, and we had to cancel the charity the following day, which was a great shame, but inevitable. I mean, and so I was up in Edinburgh for 4 days, and it was the most wonderful place to be. It was fantastic what was happening. And there was a great, deep feeling of mourning, and just everyone was they couldn't believe it. None of us could believe it. I mean, tears were everywhere. I mean, it was extraordinary.
Yes. Christopher, your fondest memories of the Queen?
Well, I was privileged to meet her several times. Now that's me in my dressing room, which you can see how small it is with Her Majesty. It was so small that Philip couldn't come into the dressing room. He had to stand in the doorway. And both of us are looking at Philip. And it's Regent's Park Open Air Theatre, and I was playing Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream. And she said, "What are those above me?" And she pointed to a shelf, and I said, "They're Puck's shoes." And she turned to Philip in the doorway and said, "Look, Philip, Puck's shoes." Whereupon I laughed like that, and she has that wonderful look. And it was a great honour. I told her everything about the dressing room, where the greeting cards came from, and all sorts of things. And she was absolutely wonderful. The poor woman must have to speak to so many boring people, and hearing about their lives. I mean, she was extraordinary. She was the best monarch ever.
Well, that's a wonderful accolade. I love that photograph. I love the photo of the Queen, but I love that picture of you. It's a reminder of what an absolute babe you are, Christopher. No one rocks a dinner suit, especially a white dinner suit like you. You're an actor, a broadcaster, and a comedian, a comedic actor. And what's quite often glossed over in terms of the Queen is her wonderful sense of humour.
Oh, her wit was amazing. She had a real twinkle in her eye whenever you spoke to her, and she really was. I met her at a charity event once, and I was doing the auction. We met in the interval. I was introduced, and she looked gorgeous. She was wearing fantastic pearls and a wonderful dress. And the man said, "This is Biggins, who's going to do the auction, Mum." "How lovely," she said. And I said, "Well, it is lovely, because you've been here tonight at Andrew Lloyd Webber's Bombay Dreams, and we've raised a lot of money, and hopefully when you leave, I'll raise even more money." And she just stood there, and I stood there, and she didn't say anything. It seemed it went on for hours, but in fact it was only minutes, I'm sure. But I said, "I don't suppose you've got anything I can auction?" Well, she went off in high dudgeon, and I thought, that's it, I'm off to the tower tomorrow, off with my head. And we were laughing about it, and suddenly, unheard of, she came back to our group, and she said to me, "What are you auctioning?" And I said, "Well, I've got holidays, memorabilia, jewellery." And she went, "Oh," covering her pearls and moving on with a real twinkle in her eye. Can you imagine if she'd given me those pearls, what I'd have got for them?
You certainly would have coined it if she'd parted with that treasure. Finally, Christopher, I've got no doubt you've brushed shoulders with King Charles. What are your thoughts about our new monarch?
Well, I tell you, I was never really a fan, but when he spoke after his mother's death, I was won over. I thought he was fantastic, and I think he gets better and better and better. And today, when he went to visit the people queuing to see his mother, that was fantastic. I mean, I think he's going to be the best king ever. He's just wonderful. I'm really impressed with him.
Well, you are the king of British entertainment. A thrill to have you on the show. Thanks for making the time, Christopher, and catch up with you in the studio soon. A comedy legend, actor, and, of course, broadcaster Christopher Biggins. Out and about, of course. Let's bring in my panel of Olympic legend Chris Akabusi, best-selling author and lawyer Rebecca Jane, and journalist, writer and broadcaster Lizzie Zeta. Lizzie, we're talking a lot about Prince Charles.
Yes.
And he's now King Charles. Something I've always admired about the man is how well-dressed he is. He is a very elegant individual.
He is indeed. He looks fantastic. He's very well turned out. I really hope that as he comes into this role, he starts to champion British fashion and really be a clothes horse for British fashion. Savile Row is suffering. There are lots of fantastic fashion houses that really do need to be supported. And, you know, unlike the French or the Italians, a lot of our MPs and people in the public eye don't look very smart. And I think that the Queen aside, she always looked amazing. But I think that he could really step up to the mark and champion the British fashion industry.
Well, yes, and champion wonderful British fabrics like Harris tweed. I mean, when he's up in Balmoral, those wonderful tweed suits.
Yes,
the
and
kilts,
cashmere.
all of
exactly.
the lamb's wool, the silk ties. I mean, this guy knows how to dress.
He does, and he's tall and he's slim. And that's fabulous in the fashion world. That's You're already winning. So I hope that he follows in the footsteps of his mother, because we need it at the moment.
Well, we do. Let's talk about his mother now, shall we, Lizzie? Because, of course, you've written extensively on the subject of fashion and the latest sort of clothing designs and all the rest of it. So let's have a look at some of the Queen's greatest hits, shall we?
Well, this
Look at this outfit. I mean, it's positively angelic, isn't it?
Well, this was during the Queen's famous visit to Ireland in 2011. I don't think that a British monarch had been to Ireland for many years. I think it was as much as 100 years. And she came and she wowed everybody. This dress had, I think, 2,091 individual shamrocks stitched into it. And her influence, her diplomacy is absolutely incredible. She also, when this photograph was taken, she's just spoken in Gaelic. And my mother-in-law is Irish and her first tongue is Gaelic. She was so impressed, as was everybody. So I think that she also wore this harp. I don't know if we can see it on this picture, but it's an Irish harp.
Yes, you can just about see it. If the viewer is watching, it would be on the right hand of the screen. And it's again, a Diamante harp.
Absolutely. And this was made especially for that occasion. And when she arrived in Ireland, she wore a very strong green colour. Of course, green is the colour of Ireland. And it was so successful. And I was spending a lot of time in Ireland at that point, and we were living there. And everybody was talking about it. Even hardened Republicans were saying that the visit was really successful. And of course, she bowed her head at one particular moment, and everybody was writing about it. She really respected what had come to pass. And bearing in mind, she lost her relative, her uncle, Mountbatten. And I think that she did an amazing job. And, I think that she's always used her clothes as an armour to protect herself, but also to communicate diplomacy.
That's right.
Yeah.
As political leverage. Let's take a look at this next wonderful image of the late, great Queen Elizabeth. And there she is. It seems to be that green is one of her favourite colours.
She does wear a lot of green, but this, I think, she wore this dress. This is taken when the Queen spoke to the nation during the pandemic. And look at the colour of the dress she's chosen. It's the same colour as the NHS scrubs that you wear. They wear. So this is saying, I respect you. I'm with you. I understand what you're going through. Thank you so much for working so hard for us. So I think that it was an amazing thing that she did.
Indeed.
Always
and last
communicate.
But not least, apologies, Lizzie. Let's have a look now at a collage of some of the Queen's finest outfits.
Wow, look at that rainbow of love. That is fantastic. Now, the Queen always wore very strong colours. The reason why she wore them, always with a matching hat, was because she wanted to stand out. So all of these people who came to see her maybe on a rainy day waiting for hours, she's not very tall, 5'3", I think. So the power, her wonderful dressers, Angela Kelly and others, devised this way of making her stand out by wearing block colours, really strong colours. And also they're just cheerful, they're happy, happy shades. And she never, ever put a foot wrong with her fashion choices.
We can see there that she's gone for gold colours, bold colours. What about the tailoring? do we know how those clothes were actually cut in relation to her figure?
Absolutely. Well, everything was very, very strictly controlled. Early on in her life, she had Hardy Amos designing for her, and later on, Angela Kelly took control of her wardrobe, and everything was very thought out. For example, she quite often wore three-quarter-length sleeves because she was constantly shaking hands. She had weighted garments so that she could get in and out of cars very, very easily. Nothing in light, shiny fabrics. Nothing with a very strong print because, of course, you know yourself, on television it's strobes. It doesn't photograph so well. So
what are you saying, Lizzie? I thought I was the eye candy on this show. Oh no, that's Akabusi. Chris, what do you think? The Queen. I mean, blokes talking about women's fashion is never very fruitful. No. But my goodness, she was elegant, and actually that was part of her brand.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Queen, everywhere she went, like Lizzie was saying, she stood out. She was a tiny lady with a great big heart and big personality. You couldn't miss her wherever she went. And she's left her mark. I mean, 70 years. She must have 70 years on the throne. She must have learnt a few things in that period of time. And you can hear by the accolades from people like Trudeau and Macron that they know that they were somebody when they met our Queen.
Most certainly. You are wearing your MBE with pride, which we will discuss later in the show, Chris. Rebecca Jane. What were you going to say, Lizzie?
I was just going to say, you said that, you know, that King Charles must not be political. But I think the royal family have been political. For example, the Queen went to Ghana in 1961, and it was a bad situation in Ghana at the time. Khrushchev was sniffing around trying to push Ghana into communism, and she went to the country. She totally charmed them. She danced with the president at the time. Pictures were flashed all over the world. This was 1961. It wasn't until 1965 when the Vote Act came in America, where everybody had the vote, including black people. And I think she was just, talk about woke, she was ahead of her time. And after that, they got the money for the a dam, the Volca Dam, I think it was called. And I just think that she's always used her power in that way. She might not have spoken about it, but it was definitely political. It was definitely political, I agree, in the most subtle way. Yes. I'm going to come to Michael Cole in just a second because he's got something to add to that. Rebecca Jane, you are a very elegant lady, and we love all of your bold colours when you're on the show. Of course, this week you're dressed in muted shades of black. But what were your thoughts about the Queen's style?
Oh, she's just phenomenal in every way for me. She always got it absolutely. It's the attention to detail, the thought that went into everything. It showed that she cared. It was, you know, Devil Wears Prada said it best, didn't they, when they said that it's not, you know, we might think that fashion's just nonsense, but it's not. It's sending out these subtle messages that says, I care and I'm here to make a statement. You know, often in our case too.
Too right. Michael Cole, I need to get to my good friend Pat O'Connell in Ireland, but can you just add to that, because you witnessed at first hand the Queen's style, and you slept all over the world with her, and she took all that clobber with her.
Absolutely, but she was happiest, really happiest, when she was in a pair of jodhpurs, a hacking jacket, Hermes scarf tied under her chin, jogging down to the stud at Anma, next to Anma Hall, where the new Prince and Princess of Wales live, watching the stallions covering the mares. She was a countrywoman. Those bold colours, she didn't particularly like them, but she had to stand out. Her press secretary at the time, Michael Shea, said to me, 50% of the Queen's job is being seen. And she regarded the coats, the hats, and the jewels as her props. And it was a role that she played to perfection for decades. But I tell you one thing, she wasn't in the slightest bit vain. When she was young, she was a strikingly beautiful young woman. But she was never vain. She never thought she was that wonderful. She was very modest in many, many ways, and far from being grand. The job was grand. She wasn't.
Hence her magic, hence her beauty. Let's head to the Republic of Ireland now. A man who famously met Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at the English market in Cork during her historic visit to the city in 2011. I'm delighted to welcome Pat O'Connell, who's a fishmonger. Pat, welcome to GB News, sir.
Good evening, Mark, and thanks for having me on the show.
Wonderful to have you on the programme. Tell me the circumstances in which you met the Queen, Pat.
Well, the Queen was the person who decided to go to the English market by all accounts, and about 5 of us were brought over to City Council on the Monday before she came. She came on the Friday, and the 5 of us were asked would we meet and greet the Queen, and we said sure, we would be absolutely honoured. And then we were told about the protocols and what we could and couldn't do, and we were told we couldn't come outside the counter, we'd have to stay behind our counters and greet the Queen from there. And we can say, nah, that's not what we do in the English market. And after much discussion, one of us was allowed out to meet the Queen, which gave that wonderful photograph.
It's wonderful. And can you remember the exchange you had, Pat? What was said?
Oh, God, quite a lot. I mean, before she came, I suppose I was a nervous wreck because, you know, the Queen has a passion for horses. I have a passion for fish, and in all honesty, I mean, they've got a head and tail in common, but little else. It wasn't going to make for great conversation, so I suppose nervous about what we discussed, but I mean, you know, the ice was broken by a fish, by a monkfish, which, as you probably know, isn't the prettiest fish in the sea. And in Cork, we call it the mother-in-law fish. And on that particular day, we had a huge monkfish on display on the counter. And the Queen said, "Gosh, what's that?" So I was thinking hard, would I say monkfish, or would I take a gamble and say mother-in-law fish and end up in the Tower of London for a couple of weeks? But anyway, we went with them. We went with the mother-in-law fish, and she threw her head back, and I kind of said, "This girl is up for a laugh." So yeah, it went on from there. But we had a wonderful conversation with ourselves and Prince Philip. So much fun on that day. It's a day that will live long in the memory of Cork people.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, and it will live long in the memory of your book, won't it? You've written a book called The Fishmonger, and this story, this exchange is a kind of central tale within the book.
Yeah, I'd probably have to write another one, Mark, and say, you know, the Queen and the Fishmonger, maybe.
well, definitely. Did you sell her any monkfish?
Sorry?
Did you sell her any monkfish?
No, but we did send her over a wild salmon the following season, and we had fabulous wild salmon on the day, but obviously we were told we couldn't give them a present, so I sent her wild salmon over the following season, and we got this most wonderful letter back from her saying that the salmon was judged to be delicious.
Well, that's just wonderful. Look, we know, you know as well as I do, Pat, I'm a Dolan. We understand that the history of Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland is complicated. But what about the Queen herself, just as a human being, as an icon? How's the news going down in era of her passing?
Oh, I think people are really sad. I think the dignity of the woman, I think when that visit to Ireland, I mean, you know, Dublin was where the heavy lifting was done. We had the Gardens Remembrance where she bowed so gracefully, and then we had that wonderful speech at Dublin Castle where she said a few focal as Gaeilge, and, you know, said, you know, in hindsight that, you know, we would have done things differently or maybe not at all. So yeah, I mean, all the boxes were ticked really, and I think by the time she got to Cork, then she was really relaxed, and you know, I mean, there was, I think, 50,000 people on the street to greet her. That's incredible for the rebel city.
Isn't it wonderful? And of course, she played her part in the Northern Ireland peace process, engaging with Martin McGuinness, of course, former Commander-in-Chief of the IRA, shaking his hand, dressed in emerald green. You know, she's had a positive influence, hasn't she? And it's brilliant. The former Royal BBC correspondent, Michael Cole, has said that all horses in the household cavalry come from Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I mean, we've been really lucky that we've had some very strong presidents in our country in the last couple of years, Mary Robinson and Mary McAleese. And I mean, you know, they were superb heads of state. And I think, you know, they were able to move things on like the Queen wanted, because she did want to come to Ireland, obviously, you know, we're neighbours and it's kind of the one country she hadn't been to. So I think she was really thrilled when she got the opportunity, and you know, I think the decision proved right. You know, every now and then history creates a window which you either jump through and grab it with all hands, or it passes and that's gone for another long time. So, I mean, this was a window of opportunity, and I think it's proven that it was a window that was really fantastic for both countries.
Well,
we are neighbours, Mark, and we are neighbours, and it's nice to get on rather than always fighting and arguing.
You're so right about that. And listen, the Queen is part of Cork history now, and so are you, Pat O'Connell. You must be a legend in your parts.
People try to tell me that, Mark, but I know what I am. I'm a fishmonger in the English market, and I'm very happy at that.
Listen, next time I'm in Cork, I'll be round to the market for some of your wild salmon. An absolute delight to have you on the show tonight, Pat.
Thank you so much, Mark. Pleasure.
Brilliant stuff. Well, he's even got a book out. It's called The Fishmonger. My sincere thanks to Pat O'Connell. Let's now speak to a woman whose sketches and illustrations have gone viral since the sad passing of the Queen. They've been retweeted thousands of times, including by celebrities such as Gary Barlow and Tyson Fury. Look at that wonderful image there. Hello again, Lilibet. And it's the Queen, a corgi, and her beloved Philip. These illustrations are now on sale, and all profits will go to the NSPCC. I'm delighted to say that the incredibly talented Kerry Cunningham joins us now. Hi, Kerry.
Hello, thank you for speaking to me.
Oh, it's our honour. You're amazingly talented. Tell me about the inspiration behind images like the one we've just seen.
It was just a reaction, really, an emotional reaction to obviously the sad news last week. And I've mentioned I saw an image of the Queen and Prince Philip. It was after Prince Philip died, and it was the two of them together on their picnic blanket, and it was such a happy, you know, such a nice, natural image of the two of them. So when obviously Thursday I heard, you know, the news of what was happening, that was just what came to mind, really, to put the two of them back together again. In happier times, so yeah.
How long did that particular image that we're looking at now take to draw?
Not long at all. The Queen and Prince Philip was around an hour, something like that.
An hour?
And again, the same, really. Yeah, the same. It's just a quick sketch with some pencils and a pen, and that's about it, really. Yeah, it was just a quick sketch and an emotional reaction to, obviously, the news of what was happening.
And both of those images that we've looked at, for anyone listening on DAB+ radio, the Queen's got her back to the person looking at the sketch. So I guess this is your way of saying that she's said goodbye.
Yes, yeah, you know, she said goodbye to us, and she's back together with him, hopefully. And yeah, just thought it would be a fitting tribute to her. And
well, look, these sketches are amazing. And where can people buy them? Because I've got no doubt my viewers would love to get hold of a print.
Yeah, so a company called the MPC Limited in Basingstoke actually stepped in to help me print them, because basically I hand address everything, and, you know, I do everything manually, so it wasn't something that I could do myself. So they very, very kindly stepped in and offered their services. And really kindly, again, donated, you know, to do it for free, and all of the profits are going to the NSPCC. So we're really hopeful we can raise, you know, a good amount of money that can do something really good for people. So
yes, well, there's another image which also went viral of the corgi with the lead, but no owner to hold that lead. It would, of course, have been Elizabeth. Briefly, has this recent attention that you've received opened doors? Do you think that it will perhaps give you a wider audience for your work?
In a way, I think, but, you know, I've kind of been joking, because usually I sort of make drawings and write poems about being a mum. So, you know, I was kind of saying people that had come over from the sketch might be sort of surprised at the other things that I draw, and it might not necessarily be their cup of tea. So I don't know, really. I think at this moment in time, I'm just really hopeful that, you know, this sketch can do some good and it can raise some money for charity. And to be honest, it's all I've really thought about for the past week or so. It is this, and there's been nothing else on my brain, really. It's been quite a strange time, but...
Can we do another plug for the NSPCC? Just once again, tell viewers how they can purchase, because I think that would be an amazing birthday gift or Christmas gift. So what's the name of the company?
Yeah. So they're called the MPC Limited. I think you can see it up on the MPC Limited. I think you can see the link there on the screen.
There you go. It's on the screen.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. So if they go to that link, they can buy cards and prints of it. And I think a lot of people have been buying it for, you know, older relatives. So yeah, fingers crossed, we can raise some money and do some good.
I think you will, and there'll be lots of potential Kerry Cunningham fans out there as well. So if you want to know more about Kerry Cunningham, just Google Kerry Cunningham, and it's Kerry with an I. Kerry, thank you so much for capturing the mood so brilliantly in your remarkable artwork. There you go, the amazing Kerry Cunningham. Fantastic stuff. Look, what a talented country we are. It is now 10 o'clock. More to come in the next hour on Mark Dolan Tonight. It's 10 o'clock on Mark Dolan Tonight in the run-up to the Queen's funeral on Monday. I'm joined live in the studio by one of the most respected and experienced royal broadcasters in the country, Michael Cole. In my take at 10, in just one moment, my exclusive first thoughts on Queen Camilla. Forget about Queen Consort. She is, in my book, Queen Camilla, and they are King and Queen. I'm also very excited about meeting Britain's human lie detector, Darren Stanton, who'll be reading the body language of Charles, Camilla, William, Kate, Harry and Meghan. He's been watching their behaviour very closely over the last few days and will tell us exactly what's going on in their heads. This man is extraordinarily perceptive. He's a former top cop, and you won't want to miss his observations at 10:20. Plus, my brilliant panel will be reacting to tomorrow's papers live at 10:30. But my take at 10 in 2 minutes' time, it's all about Queen Camilla and what I really think. But first, the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good evening, it's 2 minutes past 10. I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. The late Queen's 8 grandchildren stood guard around her coffin in Westminster Hall this evening. William stood near his cousins Zara Tindall and Peter Phillips, while Harry was with the Duke of York's daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. The Earl of Wessex's children stood near the middle. Members of the public filed slowly past them, also paying their respects. The Prince of Wales then led his brother and cousins out of Westminster Hall as the vigil ended. Earlier, the King and Prince of Wales made a surprise visit greeting people in the queue to see the Queen lying in state. Hundreds of people cheered as King Charles arrived to speak to those who've been waiting in line in South London. They offered their condolences to the King and Prince William, who thanked the crowd for standing in the cold throughout the night to pay their respects to the late monarch. The Prince of Wales could be heard asking them how long they'd been waiting for. The government website currently suggests the wait time is 17 hours. World leaders have started arriving ahead of the state funeral, with around 500 dignitaries expected to attend. A number have visited Westminster Hall to pay their respects, including the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. New Zealand's Jacinda Ardern also attended the Queen's lying in state, as well as the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden and Lady Jill Biden are now on their way to the UK. Rehearsals for the funeral were held in Windsor early this morning, with the procession moving down the long walk towards the castle gates. Thousands of mourners would be able to watch the Queen's funeral on big screens at public parks and venues across the country. The government says the event will be shown in various locations, from London's Hyde Park to Coleraine Town Hall and Northern Ireland. Around 125 cinemas across the UK will also be screening the funeral. In other news now, Ukrainian President Zelensky says there's further evidence of torture at the mass grave in the eastern city of Izium. He says there have been more than 10 torture chambers found in various cities and towns. More than 450 bodies, most of them civilians, have been found, some with their hands tied behind their backs. The city was recently liberated after 6 months of Russian occupation. The Kremlin denies it's targeting civilians or committing war crimes. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. In my take at 10, in just one moment, my exclusive first thoughts on Queen Camilla. I'll be laying it down, folks. I'm joined live in the studio by one of the most respected and experienced royal broadcasters in the country. Michael Cole is with us live. And we'll be meeting Britain's human lie detector, Darren Stanton, who'll be reading the body language of the royals. This man is a world-renowned expert on reading human behaviour, and he's a former top cop. So strap yourselves in for his jaw-dropping insights, including about our future king. He's up at 10:20. Plus, reacting to tomorrow's papers this hour, that's at exactly 10:30, my all-star panel of Olympic legend Chris Akabusi, best-selling author and lawyer Rebecca Jane, and journalist, writer and broadcaster Lizzie Zeta. Lots to get through. Let's start with this. The love affair between King Charles III and the Queen Consort, his wife Camilla, is somewhere between a fairy tale and a soap opera. The affection and attraction was instant when a 22-year-old Prince Charles first met Camilla at a polo match in Windsor. Her flowing blonde mane, dry wit and warm heart caught the eye of a man who at the time was the world's most eligible bachelor, even with those ears. Stifling royal protocol precluded the relationship from developing because, to put it delicately, Camilla had a romantic history, something that at the time made a royal union impossible. Not for the first time, archaic 19th century rules and values proved to be a hindrance, not a help for the royal family. This great institution is at its best, in my view, when it moves with the times and reinvents itself. And for Charles not to be able to marry the woman who would clearly be the love of his life was the first chapter in what would be ultimately a sorry tale, but one at least with a happy ending. For Charles and Camilla, it wasn't to be, and a more suitable bride in Diana was found. Virginal, shy, beautiful, and just the right side of aristocratic, she ticked all the boxes, except the one that needed to be ticked the most, Charles's heart. Tellingly, in an interview with Charles and Diana after their engagement, Charles was asked whether he loved Diana. She said, oh yes. He said, whatever love means. Anyone that's ever been in love will tell you it's not ambiguous and you don't need a definition. Love needs no explaining or thought. It's in you, like air in your lungs. Charles was no doubt fond of Diana. They had fun together and sired 2 fine children. But the legacy of this royal mismatch, this marriage made in hell, was negative headlines, allegations of adultery, and a divorce that at one point threatened a constitutional crisis. But it's never too late to right the wrongs of the past, and following the tragic death of Diana, Charles, over time, was able to marry the woman he should have married in the first place. And it's been a tough gig for Camilla, How do you follow Diana, particularly if you're cast in some quarters of the media as a homewrecker, the person responsible for the breakup of the royal marriage? But in the years that followed, Camilla demonstrated her character, her authenticity and her love for Charles by rising above any public criticism, by getting on with the job of supporting her new husband and fulfilling royal duties with aplomb. Like Princess Anne, who I mentioned yesterday, she's done it in a no-nonsense fashion, good-humoured, genuine, and with an unexpected touch of elegance. People used to make jokes about Camilla being horse-like, or to be blunt, ugly. What a terrible insult, and so far from the truth. Camilla is a very fine, attractive lady, and is always fastidiously tailored. She looks the part. She's got grace. She's got dignity. Queen Camilla is a title that I believe will in time sit quite comfortably in the national psyche, just as we got used to her being Charles's second wife in the first place. And why have we accepted her? Well, I think it's because she's a great person. Famous for her commitment to multiple charitable causes, particularly the plight of domestic abuse victims, a shocking crime. And no doubt she will be a force for good in the years to come. I believe that she'll continue to do what she's always done, which is crack on with the job and earn her stripes and earn the respect and affection of the British people. Charles has got his work cut out. He's 73 years of age, albeit a sprightly 73. But as we've seen in the last challenging few days, including the moment when Charles's pen exploded in his hand while signing papers, Camilla was there to break the tension and resolve the pen leakage. Behind every great man is a great woman. Well, I don't think Camilla will be behind Charles. I think she'll be right next to him. Her challenges are to support the king and fly the flag for Great Britain. I'm certain Camilla will do both with distinction. After all, she ain't put a foot wrong in 17 years. Long live King Charles, for sure, but long live Queen Camilla too. Will Camilla be a great queen? Joining me now to discuss this is the political editor of The Express Online, David Maddox, and my guest for the evening, former BBC royal correspondent Michael Cole. David, welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Do you think Camilla will be a great queen?
Yes, I do, actually, and I think it's absolutely essential that she is. I think of a great politicians. You say behind every great man is a great woman. I say behind every great woman is also a great man. You know, I think of the marriage Margaret Thatcher had with Dennis, and actually I think of the marriage that our late Queen had with Prince Philip. And these successful marriages, actually, just thinking about the institution of marriage, is essential for a successful monarch or a successful politician. And it's you need somebody you can confide in and somebody who can tell you when you're being an idiot.
Well, indeed, and as with the Prime Minister's wife or the Prime Minister's husband, similarly the First Lady or the First Man, if we ever get one of those, it's important for the brand, isn't it, that it's a partnership?
Yes, and I think of you think of Ronnie and Nancy Reagan or the Bushes, actually, both the Bushes, actually. They were both very successful marriages. They actually, they were very supportive of one another. They always provided, in fact, the Obamas as well is a great example,
Yeah.
They provided fantastic, not just support for their spouse doing this really important job, but actually kind of diplomatic support, going out in the world, selling their country, and all the rest of that comes with it.
Most certainly. Michael Cole, Camilla, Queen Camilla, tell me more.
Well, I think, Mark, I'm right in saying you do realise that Camilla will be crowned at the same coronation as King Charles III will be crowned and have his breast anointed with holy oil. That will happen, and she will then not be Queen Consort, she will then be colloquially Queen Camilla. It's quite right what you're saying, but the problem was always that Prince Charles, as he then was, got married because his father told him to, and he got divorced because his mother told him to. And we all know, who live in the real world, that marriage is hard enough, but if you're not in love, it's fated, you've had it. And that was the problem. In fact, it was my former colleague, a very good reporter called Keith Graves. He worked for the BBC, he worked for the Daily Express, and he actually put that question to them on the morning their engagement was announced. He said, "And in love," and that's when Charles came out with this fateful whatever love means. And of course, Diana tried to save the situation, and she immediately said, of course, you know, playing her part, keeping her side up. It's strange coincidence is that, of course, Camilla was for many years persona non grata, and she didn't come near the Queen. On the very first occasion, my wife and I happened to be there. It was at the Royal Windsor Horse Show in May, and we were invited into a reception after the main events, and we went into this reception in a big marquee. And Camilla was standing there, and to say that she was quaking, she really was shaking with fright. And she said she knew the Queen was coming in, and she'd never been in the company of the Queen ever. That was the first time. And she said, "Will it be all right if I stand here?" as if I was in charge. Of course, I wasn't in charge. I said, "Well, I'm quite sure it's all right. Stand with us. I'm sure nobody will notice." But that was the first time. And that's how far we've come. And we mustn't forget that when they got married in 2005, on the most freezing cold day I've ever known in Windsor in April, in fact, it was the day after John Paul II, the Pope, died. They delayed the wedding for a day. Before that, Buckingham Palace took the unusual step of putting out an official announcement. Nobody had asked them, but they put out this announcement saying, under no circumstances will Camilla become Queen. Well, we can see what's happened over the last 17 years. Things have changed, haven't they?
Well, they have. And David, you know about a mandate, authority in the world of politics. I guess at some point Liz Truss will seek a mandate from the British people with an election, possibly next year. I'm not sure that Camilla needs a mandate because it was the Queen herself who said at the Jubilee that she will be Queen Camilla.
Yes, it was actually. And I remember I was still on the Sunday Express when that statement came out. It was only a few months ago. We think about it, but it was we were all told to wait for this statement on a Saturday to be released into the Sunday papers, and we thought, "Oh my goodness, is she abdicating? Is something going on here?" I mean, it was, you know, Queen Camilla, and I think actually that was quite a big moment because I think that initial statement Michael was referring to was very much linked to popular opinion. The anger that was still around Princess Diana's death and so forth. And over these years, I think Camilla has won over a lot of people, Queen Camilla, I should say, because that's what we're referring to actually at the Daily Express now. But she has won over a lot of people, and it's moved on considerably.
I think you're absolutely right. In fact, the Queen said it was her sincere wish. Well, I don't think as many of us would have gone against the Queen's sincere wish. And of course, that was the last great gift that the Queen gave to her eldest child, that statement, because it made sure that in time his wish that she would be his Queen would be granted. And we have to face the facts. You know, people do change. 17 years is a long time. And she certainly made him happier, more grounded, more content in himself. And if he's content in himself, he can do the job better. And we've got to hope for that because it's very important for the future. This is a very important time coming up. I don't need to tell a great broadcaster and a great newspaper man, this is a time of crisis. This interlude will be looked at it's a very strange period that we're in this country. In all of my life of 79 years, I've never known anything like it. We're battered from head to toe and from pillar to post. And we need stability, we need certainty, we need the new king and the new prime minister and the new government to succeed if we're going to have a hope of getting out of this problem.
79 years. Michael Cole, you'll have to tell me the brand of beauty cream you're using. Quite remarkable.
80 in March.
Oh, congratulations. You look incredible, and we can only aspire. You give me hope, I'll be honest with you. You give David Maddox hope as well. He's in Fleet Street, you know, that's a very unhealthy lifestyle. Listen, David, before you go, before I also have to say goodbye to Michael, let's talk about an interesting piece that Michael has written for The Express. I think it's going into tomorrow's paper. And Michael, you're writing about the relationship between the monarchy and the press, which is, of course, a major, major issue for the new king.
Yeah, I wrote as my headline, "Her majestic way of dealing with the pesky press." I must just say, I've written filmed many royal reports, but I was made the court correspondent, accredited to Buckingham Palace, able to park my car in the courtyard and enter through the Privy Purse, more or less when I liked. And that was in June 1985. The first week, a big headline said, "Queen heart scare." And the story said that she'd been consulting doctors. So my editor, a Scotsman, he said to me, "Is it true? Is it true? Can you stand the story up?" And before I could pick up the phone to ring a friendly cardiologist in Harley Street, the Queen was in Aberdeen. She sprinted up a lighthouse, 92 steps, leaving the men behind her panting. That was her way, because unable to directly contradict a story which she knew to be false, she demonstrated its falsity by acting. And the next year, we were in China, and we went out to the Great Wall of China, which is precipitously steep in places, very steep. And she was running up this wall like a gazelle with her gold-plated Leica, snapping off pictures. And one by one, the courtiers fell behind, and she kept going in the general direction of Mongolia. You know, I mean, she was really going, and they had to sort of wave to her to come back. She was saying, "I'm 60 years old, I'm as fit as the next woman, what's next?"
Well, that's another remarkably inspiring story. David, briefly, if you can, we're about to get to Darren Stanton, the human lie detector, for some royal body language. But let's talk about that relationship with the press. King Charles has got to get that right, because his relationship with Fleet Street has not always been harmonious.
No, or indeed with broadcasters. I mean, we all remember the famous comments about Nicholas Witchell, which got picked up by a microphone. And, to be fair on him, he has been permanently under the microscope for virtually his entire life. And that sort of pressure, of course, must begin to tell on people, especially with all the various headlines that he's had to endure over the years. But of course, he is now he is now the monarch. He was the heir to the throne before. That comes with a level of scrutiny and things which a lot of our politicians don't like either. And it's never an easy relationship. But of course, as Michael knows very well, the job of the press is to tell the stories that people don't necessarily want to be told about them. And and the King's going to have to put up with that as he goes forward. And I have to say, I mean, I'm obviously now a digital journalist, and I work for a website. It is non-stop now. I mean, in the old days, you would have just waited for the morning papers and the headlines. Now it can just pop up at any time of the day.
Any time at all, even if a fountain pen starts leaking. Let me tell you that the express.co.uk is a brilliant news and entertainment website, and David Maddox is their political editor, and I look forward to reading tomorrow's Sunday Express, to which I believe Michael Cole has submitted 2 articles. Is that right, Michael?
I believe so.
2. There you go. So. You are prolific, if nothing.
I hope so.
If nothing, as well as being the Peter Pan of royal broadcasting. Thanks so much to Express Online political editor David Maddox and the BBC's former royal correspondent, Michael Cole. Michael, what a privilege to have you in the studio. Thank you for your wit and wisdom. Do come and see us again soon. Lots more to come. As promised, it's time now to speak to the human lie detector. That's right, my next guest uses a lifetime of interrogation experience and expertise as a police officer to analyse high-profile figures from across the world and spot the smallest details that can reveal so much about a person. It's behavioural and body language expert Darren Stanton, who's currently an expert on the true crime show Interrogation Secrets with Judge Rinder, which I've got to say is winning rave reviews. That's right, you can watch Interrogation Secrets with Judge Rinder right now. Darren, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mark, always a pleasure. How are you?
Great to have you back on the programme. You've got your own TV show now with Judge Rinder. How exciting. Lucky you. Let's sink our teeth into it. We've got some footage here of Prince Charles. So, Greg, if you wouldn't mind rolling VT, as they say. And this is Charles having a bit of trouble with the fountain pen. What does this moment tell you about Charles's character, his nature?
Well, I actually think it's very revealing, and I love to watch this because it just shows that, you know, at the end of the day, even though he's now the king, he can still make a mistake, and he's not really too bothered about showing it. It just showed that they're just kind of very down to earth, and then Camilla steps in and tries to help him, but you can see the frustration of him when the pen leaks. So I thought it was a really nice moment, and you could see the impatience and the frustration of King Charles. So I just thought it was a really nice moment and a great insight into how the two of them interact.
And Camilla, calm as they come.
I agree with a lot of what you said earlier as well, Mark, in terms of the way that Camilla has, you know, over the years become kind of accepted by the public, because obviously initially with the whole Diana thing, you know, a lot of people were very sort of reticent to accept her. But I think she's become his rock now, really. I think, you know, certainly a lot of the walkabouts and public engagements that I've assessed the pair on, it's clear that he looks for her all the time and looks for sort of a reassurance. So I think, you know, that reiterates what you'd said, is that she's going to form a very strong presence within the monarchy.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Darren. Let's take a look at the other tape that you've been studying at length. And this is Charles having a bit of trouble with the stationery. You know what? I think that he needs to pop down to Ryman and get himself some felt tip pens, maybe Tipp-Ex, a ruler, a protractor. Anyway, so he's using his hand there. I mean, this looks like he knows he's already king. I mean, he looks like he's about to send someone to the tower.
Again, I think it's a great. It almost says like that we know that it's protocol, and we're writing in sort of fountain pens, but it was almost again a frustration that let's get on with it. So he seems to be very much ready and able just to kind of crack on with the job, so to speak. So I just think he wasn't really too bothered about convention and using fancy pens. He just wanted to get on and sign the document. And you could almost see Camilla in back of shot. She almost shuffles around as if to say, shall I intervene, shall I not? And then she decides not to and lets him resolve the situation himself. So again, really nice insight into the man, really.
I've got to say, I do think the rather dozy courtiers have got to up their game. They've got to get rid of all that stuff so he can sit down and sign the document. It's not unreasonable. OK, let's have a look at our next video clip. This is King Charles with the public, and more tactile than anything we've ever seen from the late, great Elizabeth.
Again, this was very, very significant because, as we know, royal protocol with the Queen especially, it was very rare that, if at all, we ever saw this with the Queen, especially shaking hands with bare hands. So I think Charles has obviously made a very conscious decision that, you know, he wants to interact with the public. I mean, he didn't have to do this. You know, and again, any of us that have suffered a bereavement, you know, we're going to be in sort of a very low mood. So for him to do this and take time out, you know, to spend a good sort of 10, 15 minutes interacting with the public, I think it just says a lot about the man that, you know, he is going to be a very different kind of king, that he does want to interact with the public.
But
so
Dazzler,
really quite a significant mark.
Darren, is he enjoying it, though? Does he mean it? What's the body language telling you? Is he comfortable out there with the great unwashed?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's a great question. So, long story short, we only 7 expressions that we demonstrate. The most faked emotion is a smile. So we tend to fake a smile if we're uncomfortable or we just want to get away. But with Charles, I can see that this is a genuine smile. This is genuine joy within the context of him they're still feeling quite low over the Queen. But he's certainly not faking the emotion of really connecting with the public.
OK, and last but not least, Darren, let's have a look at the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and now the Prince and Princess of Wales. What's happening here, Darren?
Interestingly, generally, Prince William and Kate, in other certain situations, like when they did the royal premiere of the Bond film, they were holding hands, they were showing displays of affection. It's interesting, they decided that was probably a little bit inappropriate, whereas, Harry was holding hands with Kate. I don't know who initiated the holding hands, but generally I think it's Harry that tends to go for Meghan's hand quite a lot, and that's kind of like a reassurance gesture, because I think it's no secret that Harry's very distrustful of the press and things like that. So I think it's just showing the fact that Meghan's probably making the effort, to sort of support Harry. But principally, I think you can certainly see William and Kate, in terms of being introduced to various events recently, that they are kind of being groomed, if you like, for the next big job. They're basically already kind of ready in a way. So effectively, we're just seeing two dynamics of relationships with Meghan and Harry and Kate and William.
Piercing assessment you've made. The show, your brand new show, is called Interrogation Secrets with Judge Rinder, very talented broadcaster and, of course, top lawyer. Where can we see it?
That's actually on the Crime Investigation channel. We look at sort of various serial killers, and I'm one of the experts on the show. So just want to say, Rob Rinder, it's a pleasure to have worked with him. Such a nice guy as well.
Indeed, he is a real pro. As are you, Darren. Come and see us soon. A fascinating conversation.
Thank you, Mark. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
The TV human lie detector, Darren Stanton. It's exactly 10:30, and so, as always, on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we bring you tomorrow's papers. And let us start, shall we, with the Daily Express. Honour our Queen with ER Day. A major campaign is underway to enshrine the memory of Queen Elizabeth II with a dedicated day in the national calendar. MPs from across the party divide want the government to name when the country will come together each year to celebrate her reign. Calls will also be made in Parliament this week for a statue of the Queen to be erected on the 4th plinth in Trafalgar Square as a permanent memorial to her 7 decades as monarch. Thank you very much. The Observer next. I tell you what, that Chris Akabusi makes a right racket, doesn't he? I swear. I mean, yes, he's an Olympian, but blimey. It's just like, he's chewing up the scenery around here. Let me tell you, the GBNews set is fragile at best. Dropped a clanger. Right, we've got the Observer now. I'm trying to be serious, folks. United in sorrow, grandchildren join vigil for Queen Elizabeth, the wonderful and dignified photograph of William, Harry, Beatrice, Eugenie and others. Truss faces bruising return to political fray after funeral. Liz Truss is facing, says the Observer, a political and economic baptism of fire this week with warnings of mass bankruptcies across the economy, even as the new Prime Minister prepares to lead the nation in a minute's silence tonight to honour the Queen's legacy. Of course, that refers to tomorrow evening. These are tomorrow's papers, and there will be a minute's silence at exactly 8 o'clock. The Sun on Sunday now. Special historic edition, United We Stand, Will's and Harry's joint Queen Vigil. Again, a very moving and dignified photograph of both of those boys. And say what you like about them, they're very, very statuesque. They look brilliant in uniform. I think it was the right call to let Harry wear his military attire. After all, he spent a decade in the forces, 2 tours to Afghanistan. The Independent next. Vigil of the grandchildren. Prince Harry was allowed to wear his military uniform, say the Indy, as he joined his brother and cousins for reflection. That will be an important moment for Harry and perhaps a way for him to reconnect with his family. Here's hoping. Truss' approach to climate crisis beggars belief. Liz Truss's energy plans show that the UK has effectively abandoned net zero targets just 3 years after its world-leading commitment to cut emissions. This according to the government's former chief scientific advisor, Sir David King. Sunday Mirror, a final farewell. Granny's Guard of Honour. Grandchildren pay tribute to Queen in silent Vigil. And what a lovely photograph of the Queen there on the top right-hand corner. We will never, will we, tire of seeing photographs of Elizabeth and her unique, mesmerising smile. Sunday Telegraph next. Together for Granny, display of composure and family bonds from the grandchildren of Queen Elizabeth II at Vigil. The Daily Star Sunday, brothers in arms for Gran, running that same story. Also, Ekin Su, no one else is like me. I don't know who she is, but she seems like a brilliant person. I reckon she's got a great personality and lots of letters after her name. It's Love Island, which director Jake is a big fan of. That's right. Director, can I say, I'm going to lay it out briefly because it's live telly, so they can't edit this. Occasionally mistakes happen on live television, occasionally. I mean, even GBNews, you wouldn't believe it, would you? But, you know, you go to the wrong camera or something. That's normally because Jake is watching Love Island rather than Mark Dolan tonight. And we're going to miss the little mistakes because Jake is moving on in the next few weeks, and he's been here since the beginning. He's an incredible director, so good at his job, so professional, fabulous guy. It kills all of us to say goodbye, but he is such an important part of the success story that is GBNews. The hours, the guy is aged. He looks like, I'll be honest with you, he looks like he's done 3 days on crystal meth. But that's not what it is. He's just working very long hours at GBNews. But I promise you, we will miss him. So, Jake, thank you for everything. We wish you every success to our legendary director here on Mark Dolan tonight, the lovely, lovely Jake. I think we've got one more. Can we just go back to the Daily Star Sunday for their actual front page, which has got nothing to do with news, but it will put a smile on our faces. Spies set for official alien revelations. The truth will soon be out there. UFO facts sneaked in sci-fi telly. Secret agents tried to insert details about aliens and UFOs into a TV sci-fi series to ready the world for an official revelation about life from outer space, according to a Hollywood producer. Let me tell you that if the aliens... Back to me, Jake. You turn off Love Island, for God's sake. For 3 minutes. If the aliens do take over, I say good luck to them. They can't do worse than the lot we've got in charge at the moment. We've got the Times. Let's have a quick look at the Sunday Times before we get panel reaction. We're just loading it. And, you know, the Sunday Times, like all the papers, it's just the run-up to the funeral. It's the vigil. And obviously this really, really big story of the cousins, the grandchildren. And there you go, an arresting front page. I think, actually, the Sunday Times wins the front pages tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Farewell. And there you have William in the middle saying goodbye to his grandmother earlier in a previous photograph, flanked by his own brother. And whatever you say about the soap opera that is the royal family, it's so good to see this family back together again, although admittedly under sad circumstances. Welcome back now to our brilliant panel. Olympic legend Chris Akabusi, best-selling author and lawyer Rebecca Jane, and journalist, writer and broadcaster Lizzie Zita. Now, everyone's got an award tonight. So, for example, Chris, you've got your MBE.
Absolutely.
Which was given to you by...
The Queen.
The Queen.
Yeah, 1992.
Because it's a privilege to receive it from William or from Charles.
Yeah.
But you got it from the top lady.
It was an amazing day, and my children came with me, and the Queen was dressed in lime green, and they were up there at the top of their mum, and they said, "Where's the Queen?" Because they expected her to have a tiara on and everything else.
Oh, that's something else.
But what was beautiful,
adorable. The
Queen, I mean, there's so many people obviously getting their awards, and I was standing there, and she came up to my turn, and she knew that I was a soldier, and she knew that I was in the PT Corps, and she knew about my athletics. Now, look, there was 20 people in our batch. How she knew the detail, I do not know, because she was already in her 60s then.
She didn't have it on a bit of paper?
No,
She's not got anyone in her ear?
No. So she, 20, and it was just amazing. And for me, you know, I am a royalist. I'm a kid from a children's home, and there you are. Your Queen is talking to you about your life. It was just an amazing moment.
And of course, you will have that accolade forever, physically on your lapel, but also in your heart as well.
100%, yeah, 100%. It's got a pride of place in my home. Of course, you know, today in memorial. I was wearing it, but normally I don't wear it in public unless it's a special occasion. I think this is a special occasion.
Yeah, it most certainly is. And I'm delighted to say, Rebecca Jane, you have an award as well.
I do.
This is not from the Queen, but it's a very, very great accolade. And it's for your charity work.
Yes. Well, it's not.
First of all, can we just grab the award? Because it's nearly as good as an Oscar.
It's a serious award. This could do damage. So we've been on Neil Oliver's show. So I'm chief exec of a children's charity where the kids run the charity. And so we did Neil's show. We haven't done your show, Mark.
Want to do it?
Yeah.
We will want to big it up. I mean, Neil Oliver, he's, I'm in competition with him, so you know what I mean.
You should have got there first.
Anything Neil can do.
Because now they're award winning. So they won. So I was supposed to be on the show last night. Somebody kindly substituted, not sure who it was, so I could actually go. I didn't think we were going to get it. And so the kids won this award so they come up with projects to help mental health for young people. And so they've hung 120 pairs of shoes that line the whole of the happiest town in the UK, Clitheroe, in memory of the 120 people that take their lives every week. And it's been up for a month. And so, they're award-winning and so cute.
It's just wonderful, and a great credit to you and a great credit to the youngsters. What sort of age group are the kids involved in this charity?
So they are 11. So our head of finance is 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, I'm not deaf.
And let me guess, are they terrifyingly advanced? Are they brilliant with all the admin and everything?
They're good, but I'm not silly, am I? Put an 11-year-old in charge of finances and the little girl goes into a business and says, give me your money. Who's going to say no to her?
You're not going to say no.
I'm not daft. So, and then we've got our oldest, he's 15 and 16, actually. So our CEO is 15 years old. Lovely girl called Lucy.
That's brilliant. Well, look, big up to them. It's their award and yours, and what an important cause, which is the mental health of young people, which is a cause of huge concern, particularly post-pandemic. Well, let's get into the papers. And, Lizzie, Granny's Guard of Honour, say the Sunday Mirror. And it's, the saddest possible occasion, but wonderful to see them together.
Yes, it is really wonderful to see them together, in particular, Harry. I just think it's a really... We were talking about it earlier, actually, between ourselves. And I just think that, we've all made mistakes. We've all said silly things. And I think it would be wonderful if Harry can be reunited with his family. I know lots of things have been said. And the problem is that royal family cannot respond. However, looking at pictures of him, he looked devastated, and he must be thinking, gosh, I'll never see my gran again, I'll never be able to heal any rifts or talk to her. So I think it's a really wonderful opportunity, and I think that as broadcasters we should all be reconciliatory, spread the love.
Well, yeah, I think it's obviously in the family's interest for them to heal the wounds and regroup and get back together and rebuild those relationships. I think it's in the national interest too, and I wonder whether that's why Charles pointedly stressed his love for Harry and Meghan in his first comments after the announcement.
I thought that was very...
I mean, that was pointed. That wasn't accidental, was it?
Definitely. But I think he's the dad. He should. Family rifts are incredibly painful. Anyone who's been through a family rift, and most people have, but to do so in the public eye is really difficult. And I think that, I think we should support them.
I do agree with you on that one. And I think Harry has an opportunity here, doesn't he, Rebecca Jane? But it's the million-dollar question, no pun intended. Will he take that opportunity? Given that there's money on the table for that book, money on the table for podcasts and TV series.
Sorry, bit of a cynic. I think it's a little bit too far gone. I think in, 20, 30 years, maybe there's a way back. But right now, I think Harry and his force behind him will be taking all the money that they can. And I think the book will continue. And I think it's absolutely horrific that it is doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think that... Because I spoke to Ken Worf last night, Diana's former bodyguard, and we both came to the conclusion that if he pulps the book, right, if he cancels the publication of the book, he's got a chance.
Yes.
But if this book comes out, it's game over?
I think so.
Because that would be a gesture, wouldn't it? If he said, look, I'm going to hand back the deposit or whatever, the advance on the book.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take the money, and the price I'll pay is worth it because I get my family back.
There is a gesture, yes, if he does it, it is a gesture, and yes, it is going some way towards it. I genuinely, 95.7% of me says that he absolutely will not do that. I just think that the whole race element that got brought into the Oprah Winfrey interview was the most damaging thing I think that anybody has said or done about our monarchy. And I just think that, I don't know if there's a way back from that. I think that the royal family are epic at glossing up a story. I think that if they can gloss it up, then they will. I think that Charles had to say something towards Harry because he had to. But I do think it was a bit of a glossing up part of
There you go. Chris, RJ, Rebecca Jane is not having this reunion.
I'm not.
She's out.
I'm not there. Go on, Chris.
Well, yeah, I know you've been supportive of Harry and Meghan. You don't like all of the Harry and Meghan bashing.
Not at all.
But is the idea of a reconciliation a pipe dream?
Look, this is a very important moment in our constitutional history. Our monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, has passed away, and King Charles III is now, it's his period, it's his time. He is a father on the one hand, he's the monarch on the other hand, and he's done the right thing in ensuring that his sons stand in vigil and honour of their grandmother. And for me, it's probably the wrong time to be talking about issues that we probably don't know the details of. So I'm very happy to see these guys here with their cousins.
Yep.
God, the Queen.
I love our viewers. I love your emails. Ken just says, get real. Prince Harry is finished and not wanted. Harry and Meghan go back to the USA. Carol says, I think the press have been bullish about Harry. It's a disgrace. More in that family that have done far worse than him. Still living in royal households and divorced. Who's keeping them? Says Carol. How about... oh, look at this. Anna, who says, hello, everyone. Very sorry to hear that your director, Jake, is leaving. I must admit that till just now I had no idea who directed Mark Dolan. Yet a lot of people think no one does. If you watch the output. But it's always been clear that whoever it was is doing a marvellous job. There's something rather sad about one of the originals leaving the fold. You've all literally helped change the world for the better with getting GB not only up and running, but blazing a trail in the fight for free speech and decency. Thank you, Jake, and all the best of you. And that's from Anna. Anna, thank you so much.
Is that your mum?
It would sound like Anna Dolan.
Who would
Let me tell you that my mum's normally in bed by now. She likes to get her beauty sleep. Look, I want to thank you so much for your kind email, Anna. GB News is nothing without you. You are GB News. So if you're enjoying the programme, if you're enjoying the channel, tell your friends, tell your family, and let's change the world together. I'll get to more emails very, very shortly. Well, let me just give you a couple. Ken says, Chris is wrong, wrong, wrong. And Yvonne says they will never be trusted, Harry and Meghan. You'd stop mid-sentence every time one of them walked into the room, just so that what you said is not sold to the media. Major trust issues there. By the way, 2 nights in a row in which I've not been able to stay on top of the emails. We have so many emails tonight, and we'll be back to normal next Friday, and I'll make sure to prioritise your emails because it's my favourite bit of the show. So apologies that we haven't had more emails earlier. If you've been watching or listening, you'll know it's been a frantic couple of hours. Lots more to squeeze in to the next few minutes before we go. The scale of the security challenge for Monday's funeral is unprecedented. British soldiers have been pulled out of Iraq to carry the Queen's coffin. They will be among 1,000 members of the armed forces on the streets of Windsor when the late monarch is laid to rest in St George's Chapel. And that's the amazing thing, Lizzie, is that you've got military from all over the world coming to London. You've got officers from police forces in the southwest, the Midlands, the northwest. We've seen football matches cancelled. Really, really big game tomorrow. Man United Leeds cancelled because they need the cops down south.
No, absolutely. I mean, but what a nightmare for 500 very important members of state coming to this. It's not a party. The gathering tomorrow evening for to remember the Queen, etc., etc. You've got Biden coming. You've got Macron of France. Everybody.
Anyone good coming?
In one room, all at the same time, and I think that it's a nightmare for logistics and. I nearly said there, King Charles go out onto the street and shake people's hands in the States is because we don't have all of the guns within society. It's quite hard to get hold of one. But, yeah.
Yeah, all of the police forces will have standard operation procedures, and in another field, I know that they've been planning for the eventuality of the Queen becoming late. So it's all kicked into gear now. So there's no surprises that they're doing a fantastic job.
And what's amazing is that I understand that this has been in the works for about 10 years, and that the military rehearse procedures for the potential Queen's funeral, and that I was broadcasting from the sort of media village at the palace, which is Canada Gate, and there's a cafe there, and toilets, and portaloos, and electricity cables, and internet connections.
Yeah.
It's like a city down there, which hasn't happened by accident.
No, precisely that. No.
And maybe a reminder of how damn good we are in Britain at organising things.
Well, we were saying also in the green room when we were looking at the pageantry, there isn't another country in the world that could hold the pageantry that we've seen over the last...
The precision of it, the absolute beauty of it, it's what the British do best. It's fantastic. And I think I don't wish to sound cynical, but I think it's amazing for the country that we are being showcased in this way. Yeah. We will get the money back in spades with tourism, and hopefully Liz Truss will do a few deals after the gathering tomorrow. She'll be, hi, remember me? My name's Liz. How about...
She networking.
I hope that she's not allowed to talk about business during the evening. That's not protocol. But afterwards, hopefully she'll be getting a few trade deals under her belt.
Well, I agree with you there, and I like your optimistic tone. It's not one reflected in The Observer. There's a surprise, Rebecca Jane. Truss faces bruising return to political fray after funeral. I have no truck with these negative headlines. I know we're at the tail end of the pandemic, a big economic crisis, but we've got a new king and a new Prime Minister, and I'm determined to be optimistic. It is a new chapter for the country. And how spooky that these two big jobs should happen at the same time.
Isn't it a lot for like a couple of weeks? They're not wrong. You can have an issue with it all you want. They're absolutely right. There is a lot going on.
You know what? She's the most experienced member of the cabinet. She's been in almost a decade. She's ready. Like Charles, she's ready for the top job.
Incorrect, Mark. Absolutely not. I'm having none of it.
No. What do you think? I mean, obviously it's a big change for the country, isn't it? How's the country going to adapt to a new PM and a new king? Will we just move straight on? I mean, will there be teething problems?
We will.
What about how long is Charles's honeymoon period? Do we think? How long does he get? Because poor old Liz Truss, her honeymoon was basically an evening at Wetherspoons, wasn't it?
Oh, she hasn't even had one.
No.
No, I think actually Charles may be okay. Yeah. I think that I don't think it might be just a honeymoon phase. I think actually we will like him. Liz Truss, no, sorry, don't like her already, and I don't see any honeymoon even happening.
Really? What's your criticism of Truss?
I think that she's an impersonator. I don't think she's authentic. I think she's saying what the people think, and I don't think she's going to get a job done.
And also, she was part of the government.
You'll have to get off that fence, Rebecca Jane. We don't do vanilla on Mark Dolan tonight. Jake won't be happy.
you know, she was part of the government that made so many mistakes.
Yep.
And she was part of all of that. And now she's, you know, now she's going to do it all differently. And
we've
now
gone from bashing Boris to bashing Liz. She hasn't even started yet.
But she's part of it. But she's actually on the other side of the wing.
Give her a break.
She can prove us all wrong. She can be amazing. She can win all these deals. She could be astonishing. But I'm not holding my breath.
Well, I think she's going to be a true Conservative, and I think that she's supported by the sort of ERG and the sort of right side of the party. So let's see. And now, of course, having said that, she's going to give us loads of money to get people out of the cost of living crisis and the energy crisis, etc., etc. And she's got to try to win an election in the next couple of years. But it's going to be a very different government than Boris Johnson's government.
I think it will be a more coherent government, don't you?
Well,
because she's a policy person, she's a detail person.
Yeah, and she's surrounded by detailed people. More.
She gives people's maths tests, you know. In meetings, it's kind of like a relaxing thing to do because her father was a maths professor, and she's very, very good at maths. And she gives people maths. Thank God I've never met her.
Yeah. Well, I hope she's good at maths. She's going to be dealing with a lot of minuses when it comes to the economy.
Absolutely.
Country's in the red at the moment. A lot of subtraction, not much addition. Also, we have. I mean, there's all this, you know, pomp and ceremony, which is striking across all of the things. But I just wonder whether this pageantry is going to usher in a new age of patriotism, Lizzie, potentially, even among younger people.
I think what's been really great is that people have, it sounds corny, but people have come together, and I was getting really tired of the fraction, you know, the arguing, the in-arguing on the left,
tribal
on
politics.
the right. It's too much, and I just
Why can't we all be British?
Yeah, why can't we?
There was something you said.
Why can't we listen to each other? I listen to The Rest Is Politics with Rory Stewart and Alistair Darling, and I really like the way that they approach things. It's a fantastic because they listen to each other. Yes, you must be.
You said that when you were having your discussion with Mr. Coles, you said about the Elizabethan age, the Victorian age, Edwardian age. I don't know how you say the Charlian age, but I was actually concerned there because I thought to myself, King Charles actually may be forced to try to do something in the time frame that he has got. And you remember in the last couple of years, Build Back Better, Build Back Better. I wonder if Charles's age will be the Build Back Better age.
Well, that could be controversial. Let's go out with an email from Dan who said, can you please remind Lizzie and RJ of how many mistakes Tony Blair and Gordon Brown made? There you go. Well, look, it's all about opinions. Thanks so much for your company. I am back with Mark Dolan tonight. On Friday, Dan Wootton is looking after the show tomorrow night, of course, in preview of the funeral on Monday. Wall-to-wall coverage, the only place to be is GBNews. I'm back on Friday. Can't wait to see you there, 9 o'clock. And we'll be talking about lots of other things, including the cost of living crisis, without forgetting our incredible Queen. Thanks to Jake. We wish you a successful future. And, folks, here is another set of wonderful memories from Queen Elizabeth II. See you on Friday.